On the manager.
Yes. I can't even say yes without laughing. Welcome to P.M.P. Dearie me, dearie me, dearie me. Celtic win 1-0 at Ibrox. Welcome along, Terry Rob. How are we doing over there, mate? You all right?
You're a wee bit more upbeat than you were on the old Sunday session match.
The Sunday Blether, mate. Yeah, I still predicted 2-0, mate. So we still kind of.
We did, but listen, everybody was talking about how unhappy they were with the team and everything. Then when it came to the predictions, everybody predicted a Celtic win. I'm looking forward to getting into this, Bhoycie, because I think there's a lot to discuss. Obviously,
yep.
we say this quite a lot on the post match. The result influences your view on the game and things like that. So I'll be interested to see your take on the game.
Yeah. Nice one, mate. I'm here to ask you the question. Just remember that, though, Terry. Anyway, before we get started, we'll do all that good stuff very quickly. Give us a wee like, give us a share, slag the hair, all that carry on. If you want to become a Bhoycie Bus member, like so many of you have, it's $1.99 a month. It's completely optional. All our content is free and usually done with a big smile on our face, like today. Head over to piesports.com, 12.5% tasty discount at the checkout. Enough of all that crap, though, Terry. 1-0, 4 points clear, top of the table.
Yep, absolutely. It's difficult to sort of try and comprehend just the mood of this sort of start to the season, because it hasn't been good from Celtic. We've been frustrated in terms as supporters. We've been frustrated. Well, I certainly have. I don't know about you, but I've been frustrated in terms of the activity in the transfer market. I've been frustrated by the performances on the park. I still didn't see a lot today that excited me, or I think today for me was one moment of quality between a game between two very, very poor teams. But that moment of quality was on our side, and somehow we go into this international window having had a very poor transfer window, very poor start to the season, and we're 4 points clear of our biggest rivals. So it's a conflict, and I'm conflicted in my own mind, because you'd have settled for that. If you were offered that, a 4-point lead after 4 games over your biggest rivals, you'd have snapped anybody's hand off for that. But there's just something not right about this Celtic team at the minute, and I can't.
Oh God! He says about us on the Sunday Blether being when he starts this shit already.
It's difficult. It's difficult to try and separate how you're feeling about winning the game from how you felt about how the team played and things like that. It's a difficult one, but absolutely, I might not come across. I'm absolutely delighted. I couldn't be happier.
I thought the first half was a Brendan masterclass, mate. It was at his absolute best. What we were discussing on the Blether, I know you were watching it obviously intently, Terry, but your views there was that I said if we can keep them quiet for the first 15 minutes, then they'll get frustrated. I think it was a deliberate ploy. Celtic actually took that on board, and they basically, not from me, obviously, I mean from the manager, they took it on board and they decided to basically just be very, very patient in their approach, knowing that if we've got the ball and they don't, their fans are going to get in their back. They're going to get frustrated, and all the staunch hustle and bustle that they'll try and play with, it won't work if they don't have that ball. Celtic's ball retention, I thought, was very, very good first half. I contrasted and compared it with theirs. They didn't know what to do in the ball. They don't have any bravery on the ball. We did. Brendan, after the game there, spoke about, he told the players that were playing, he wanted them to play like men. He says, because a lot of them are young lads, first time in this sort of environment, but I thought a lot of players did step up and showed what they had. There was no heart attack. I think Bielka was determined to make the game more interesting on a few occasions. Greg Taylor the same. Other than that, mate, I thought the team played very, very well. You consider the absentees from that lineup also, and the players that we've lost, such as Jota. I think there's a lot to be excited about there. We'll kick it off. Obviously, there was a nervy moment, Terry, at the beginning of the game. Right at the beginning, they put the ball in the net. It did look offside from the get-go. No concerns there. Then we get to their disallowed goal. and the mood music did seem to change. But ironically, it was so against the run of play. If you remember their goal, Terry, that with their goal that didn't stand, it was so against the run of play. If you actually remember, right after the goal, the possession stats go up on the screen. Celtic 79% possession at that point to 21. That was against the run of play. Kenny Miller decides it's actually Lagerbielke who's kicked the back of the other player's leg, which, as Chris said, I don't even think you believe that. It's like, shut up, mate. It's just utter nonsense. It was a foul with hindsight. That's what VAR is there to do. We didn't expect VAR to work in our favour, but it was the correct call. I know it's a minimal foul. Foul's a fucking foul. Right? See, because it's led to a goal. That's the only reason there's any debate about that. If play had been whistled up at any other area on the park, for that being a foul, it's a non-event. Nobody even thinks of it. The game carries on, free kick, no problem. But because it's been allowed to play on to their advantage and they get a goal, a bit of dispute. But Lagerbielke undeniably was a player they were right to be targeting. He dilly-dallied on the ball at that moment in time. And I did think Liam Scales, for whatever reason, came of age today. And maybe understandably for Lagerbielke's point of view, he looked a wee bit nervy. But at that moment in time, what did your gut say about that decision, Terry? Did you feel it was a foul at the time, or did it take the video assistant replays, obviously, to you to arrive at the conclusion it was a foul as well?
Just very quickly on the 40 seconds in where that goal was.
Yeah, go on.
I absolutely hate that rule where the game goes on and then you go back for what was a clear, obvious offside. But what I did think was that ball that created that opportunity in 40 seconds, that sort of long ball in the back of our centre backs, that was the ball that was causing us the most trouble throughout the whole game. So I thought that set the tone a little bit, that just a long punt seemed to be their best option. The Lagerbielke one, see when he was actually in possession of the ball, I was sending my dad, I says, this will go back to the goalkeeper. And he was ponderous. He was really ponderous possession. I think it's a clear, obvious foul. I don't know where the narrative is that Lagerbielke kicks the Rangers player. I think the Rangers player stands on his standing foot, which causes him to swing and miss the ball. I think it's a clear foul. However, I do think we were lucky from the perspective that he was ponderous in possession, and Rangers could have won that ball without a foul, and we would have ended up one behind. But it's one of those ones. If you're from a Rangers perspective, you're going to say it wasn't a foul. If you're from a Celtic perspective, you're going to say it was a foul. And if you're neutral and rational, you're going to say it was a foul. And it was a foul. It was a clear foul. Yeah. But he was ponderous, and there were times during the game where he was misjudging the flight of the ball. And he continued to be ponderous in possession. And when he was getting the ball, I was thinking, I'd much prefer if he just launched it here, because he wasn't convincing me with his passing. And I think it's easy to sort of forget, like, he is a young lad and he's been thrown in. I suppose, given the makeup of our back four and the challenges that we've had, the fact he's been there 2 or 3 weeks, you're sort of thinking he's now a mainstay. He's a mainstay in the defence. What I was impressed with, I thought Scales helped Lagerbielke through the game. Scales got man of the match on Sky Sports, and I'll be honest, the names that I'd written down from my own perspective were Scales, Maeda, and Kyogo, just because of that one moment of absolute quality. I didn't think he did a great deal other than that, but I think just given that you've gone to Ibrox and you've kept a clean sheet, and you're probably the most unfancied person in that back five, and you've come in for a lot of criticism, and you're really unfancied. And I thought he kind of held that defense together today.
He stepped up, big man.
He'll probably be the first one to drop out whenever the bodies start to come back again.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
Excellent today. I really did.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Brendan will be fluid in that. I don't think he'll have the same, favourites list that Ange Postecoglou maybe had. I think when he looks at the centre backs, whatever position it is in the park, he'll base it on what he's seeing with his eyes, the eye test. And I think today Liam Scales had a far better performance and elevated himself. Do you know what I mean? In the reckoning, regardless of whether a player's cost $3 million or not, I don't think that's going to influence Brendan and his decision making for his team. This guy looks at things with a clear, cold, calculated prism. That's what you want from a manager. They always say, Terry, never go back with your exes, but I bet there's a few people considering it tonight.
Can I wind you back to the team selection? And just the team's obviously come out about an hour and 15 minutes before the game, and I was kind of engaging in the social media reaction, and there seemed to be a lot of displeasure with the lineup that Rodgers had gone with. And I know that whenever you and I spoke last week, I had said, I don't really care who comes in the next week. I don't see how we can throw someone into that game who's just coming in on Thursday or Friday and trying to get into a side to go and play in that environment. And that's how it turned out, because none of the guys that were signed between the last game and this game started the game or actually featured in the game today. I'm not too sure about the guy that's come up for Liverpool. It seems as if he's carrying some sort of knock, despite him being here to be the player that's covering for the knocks. In some kind of strange way, that's maybe worked out. He could have played and the result could have been different. He probably would have played instead of Scales, and we could be sitting here talking about a completely different game. But yeah. I genuinely didn't feel Brendan was going to throw somebody in who'd only just met his colleagues in the last 48 hours and throw them into that game. I also didn't understand some of the Celtic fan reactions. People saying Palma must start over Maeda. Nobody's even heard of this guy 10 days ago. Nobody's ever heard of him. Nobody has actually seen him play. Nobody knows what he can do. Yeah, last year that
was it so much about Palma though? No, Terry. I think this is where maybe you're a wee bit off. I don't think it was so much about Palma the individual, as opposed to Celtic fans going, we need some sort of injection of a difference to what we've seen the last few weeks. We need something different. There needs to be a curveball in there. That's what I think the fans are pining for. They just wanted to see something thrown into the mix, because already I think people are feeling a bit of a staleness about the approach. I don't think it was as deliberately aimed at Maeda. That's just my take. I
understand that, but there's also this assumption that certain players are going to be better than the ones that are there and have already done the job. And Dyson Maeda's done the job for us in these games before, and I thought he was obviously, he looked awkward at times. Some of his distribution was very, very wasteful, but I thought he had a good game today, and I thought probably that the tactic with him was to stop Tavernier, and I don't remember Tavernier getting possession in our half any sort of time where he could get forward and do what he does week in, week out, which is create opportunities, create chances for himself, get on the end of things. I thought Maeda actually, he was preoccupied with keeping Maeda quiet, and anytime he got the ball, Maeda was closing him down instantly. And I thought he'd done a good job for us today. I really did.
Well, yeah, no, he did. He absolutely did. Like I say, I think the Palma inclusion was just people wanting, just give a sign that we've not seen yet. I think Maeda had a very good game. I totally agree. I think a lot of players had good games. Let's talk about Callum McGregor in that first half as well before we get to the Kyogo goal, because Callum McGregor decided he was dictating the pace. Rangers, though, we've got to also kind of look at this. If, in my mind's eye, it was going to be a case of they're going to push us back, we're going to be maybe like the second half played out a wee bit more. They're going to be in the front foot, trying to keep us camped in a wee bit, and we're not going to have the space and the time. They sat off us, and Callum McGregor's went from a guy out of form to going, I've no choice but to be in form today, thanks to the time, the space, the room I've got. And if you give this boy that space, mate, fucking hell, more fool you. Because an out of form Callum McGregor, when given such a lead role in a match by the opposition, not by Celtic, he wasn't in any different position than he normally plays for Celtic. And I just think they welcomed him into the game. And when you do that and you start seeing him finding his poise again, finding his purpose, there was a through ball he plays from Abada. Abada cuts it back. Hugo tried to wee flick, which never really quite came off. But that through ball by McGregor, the technique in it is just stunning. It's got that wee bit of spin on it, so the ball just waits up nicely for Abada to run onto. The angle he's played it at, I just thought, wow, he's back in the groove. And I think if you just can't afford to let guys as good as Callum McGregor get into their groove. More fool them for that being their tactics as well. I think that's an ignorance at times. Celtic might look off the boil, so sit off them because they've got guys out of form. We'll pick them off. I think they were trying to do the counter-attack style in the first half. They thought they were going to use the pace and get in behind us, and we'll sit off, and then we'll hit them on the break. Don't do that with brilliant footballers like Cal Mack. He'll make you pay. And I thought in the first half he was swaggering by the end of that. He looked very, very impressive.
I agree with you. I do agree with you on that point. And I think the first half we were good, and I think the first half we were easily the better side, and a lot of that was down to McGregor. And McGregor has come under a bit of criticism in the first few games, and do you know what? I think that's more than fair because he hasn't been hitting the heights that we expect from him. I think what's happened is the teams that we've played so far, Ross County, Kelly, Aberdeen, St Johnstone, I think what their managers have done is they've identified that a lot of what is good about Celtic comes through Callum McGregor. He picks the balls up from the centre backs. He's the glue that's joining the whole thing together. And they were putting a man on him to disrupt that and to stop the flow of the ball into McGregor. So rather than try to defend once McGregor gets the ball, those teams were stopping the flow of the ball into McGregor or hitting him as soon as he get into possession. Mickey Beale, for whatever reason, decided that wasn't a tactic that he wanted to employ, and McGregor was just left. He was just left like a bull in a big field where he could just graze and do whatever he wanted, and he was dictating the whole thing. And
is there an arrogance for Beale in that aspect as well, Terry? Do you think there's an arrogance in that a wee bit? Because that is honestly, that would be the one thing any former Rangers manager of the last 7-8 years would say, do not give him the room to engineer dictating a derby match. He's the one guy you cannot let dictate the play. They gifted him it, mate, in that first half. I think there's arrogance freaking out of that, if I'm honest.
It probably is, Bhoycie. It's probably just he's probably looked at from a perspective of we're Rangers, we're at home, we're going to worry about what we do and let them worry about trying to stop us, rather than employ a tactic that has been very, very effective for much lesser sides than Rangers in the last few games. But I just felt that, that first half probably felt to me the closest to us being back to the levels that we're kind of expecting. We're expecting the team to hit. And a lot of that, as I say, is due to the spaces that McGregor was finding himself in. He's taking the ball off the defenders. He's starting to join the attacks. He's starting to create the opportunities. And that opportunity with that Kyogo, I think what's happened there, I know Kyogo, he looks as if he's gone for something fancy, but I do think it was just ever so slightly behind him. But that was that template move that we've seen so many times last season, where the ball is played inside the fullback, the wide man comes onto it, crosses it first time, and usually ends up with Kyogo putting it into the back of the net.
Well, absolutely, it normally does, and you worry if you're going to get paid for those sort of mistakes, if you like, or lack of cutting edge. When you get opportunities, you think, "Oh, we've kind of got to take that." Then what does he decide to do? I wonder when I look at Kyogo's finish, when he's hit that early, that is a guy raging at the previous opportunity he's had, and he's just, I'm not even thinking about this one. No trying to be clever, not taking 3 touches, because remember before that he had the opportunity, he could have scored it to Maeda.
Yeah.
And he sort of cuts in, and he had like 3-4 like really short touches, and then I think he just got caught in 2 minds. It wasn't a great shot. It certainly wasn't the square ball either. And then that finish for the goal, I think he just went, fuck. He just get the overthinking out the way. Do what I do best. See, when you watch the slow motion replay, that technique as well, it's outside of the boot he's hit that volley with, mate. Look how the ball's evolving in there. It is completely brilliant how he's done that. No keeper saving it. They're not remotely in position yet. They've not got their stance yet because they're not expecting the shot. It's the act of surprise, but then the execution is just a shambles how good for Kyogo. And again, this is not an environment where you're playing, no disrespect. Well, who cares if there's disrespect? They're my team anyway, but like Ross County away and you're doing things like this. This is when it's right up against it, 50,000 fans. So you just have that clear mind just to go, but I'm capable of doing that, so fuck it. There you go, leathered. What a finish that is. Honestly, brilliant. And right at the perfect time as well, right before half time. Couldn't ask for any more.
Like I said at the start, it was the one moment of quality in a game that lacked a lot of quality. But
no, I agree with that too.
The chance that he had earlier, you kind of think in these games you're going to rue missing a chance like that. And initially thought he should have squared it to Maida. When I saw the replay, I'm thinking that actually would have been a difficult enough pass. It might have got cut out. When he's gone to hit this one, the goal, when he's gone to hit it, I'm actually going, what the fuck's he doing? Why is he going to hit it so early? And then the next thing, I'm rolling around the floor and screaming my head off, and you don't care anymore. But what a finish! And it was a wee bit like the one against Aberdeen a couple of weeks ago. I just thought he's hit it really, really early, but as soon as it's left his foot, it's only going one place. It's going in the back of the net, and it was absolutely brilliant finish, and a goal worthy of winning better games than this one.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't the highest quality game. Sutton said something in the first half, and I thought that was a good way of describing it. He said, I actually like a lot of the patterns of play that Celtic are showing here. There was an identity in how Celtic were playing. That is the thing. You could see that whatever the plan has been, and I've spoken about this before, not to be fucking not to be, there's Danger Mouse. Why are people not happy with our manager and recruitment? Danger Mouse, I've always been happy with the manager. I don't know what podcast you've been watching, mate, to be honest. No one's even mentioned recruitment. We're talking about 1-0 at Ibrox. Plenty of time, mate. Not a question for this podcast, mate. Not today, no. We're talking about the game. But we'll get back to the game, Terry. But I just felt that there was patterns of play that I seen where I went, now the beginning, the message, whatever it's been, I felt had been exaggerated by the Celtic players almost. They'd stepped off so much and were playing in such a negative way. I was like, he's telling you to be maybe more balanced in your play, not quite as full throttle. He's not saying go backwards, you bastards. You know what I mean? And I think it's just took a wee bit of time, the same way it took a team time to learn Ange's methods to now pick up on Brendan's. Today was the closest I'd seen to Brendan's messages getting across clearer than ever.
Bhoycie, yeah, I just have to say it here. My dad was saying to me during the week, he said he loves watching the pod. And I know I've already swore once and you swore once. He turns around to me and he says, I'm going to stop watching you boys if you keep swearing. He says, Paul John Van Dyke never swears whenever he's on during the week. He calls him Paul John Van Dyke.
That's all right, mate.
I'm going to try.
I'll definitely not fucking swear again.
What were you asking me there?
Who cares, mate? What was I asking you? Patterns of play. It feels like Brendan's style of football today looked like it had more.
I think there's been a game plan. There's been a game plan for today.
And the players had picked up the message, I was saying, clearer than ever so far from what we've seen.
I think so, Bhoycie. I think there were signs that something's been worked on, and during the first half, it felt like it was closer to where we would like it to be. Second half, though, I don't know about you. I felt the second half was a real drop off from Celtic in terms of performance. I felt we were happy to just sort of sit there on the lead, see what happened, get opportunities on the break, which we did get, and we could actually have scored. We could have scored more, and we maybe had better chances than they had, even though it felt from a supporter point of view that we were kind of being penned in, and they were dictating the pace. And it's very easy when you're, I don't know, when you're watching the game. I always feel something's going to happen in this game. They're going to get a stroke of luck here. They're going to get something, and even with 5 minutes still to go in stoppage time, I'm thinking if they get one here, they'll probably get two. And if I was to watch that game back later on tonight or tomorrow, it's probably a lot more comfortable than how I actually felt at the time, because you just feel something's going to go wrong or something's going to go against us. I felt there were times any pressure that Rangers put on us today, I think we invited that on ourselves by poor passages of play. I felt some of the players that started the game were pretty anonymous today, and we probably touch on that. The names that are coming to my mind are Turnbull, Abada. I know there was one moment Abada played Kyogo in later in the game, and that was that was good in that moment, but I felt the game kind of passed those two guys by. I know he's a very easy target at the moment. I thought Greg Taylor was very, very wasteful in possession at times. I felt we invited them onto us in the second half. I felt we did stupid things that we didn't need to do. We're sitting on 70 minutes with a 1-goal lead away at Ibrox with no supporters. Joe Hart and the two centre-backs are doing this short goal kick that is fine for Man City to do with the players they've got. But why are Celtic doing that in that moment? And we're giving the ball away constantly. We're giving the ball away from throw-ins. Taylor, one throw-in, I think it was the first half. He threw it out. It went for a goal kick. Second half, he done something similar. Took a throw-in straight to a Rangers player. Basics, just keep the ball, retain possession. But we were giving it away. Again, it doesn't feel right that we're sitting here after a victory away from home against those guys and going 4 points clear. But it would be remiss of me not to call it out that there were a lot of moments in that game that we could have been a hell of a lot better. And I think the result we've got today, by hook or by crook or how we've got it, it's in spite of a lot of the deficiencies that have gone on in the club over the last few months, rather than because of what we've done over the last 2 or 3 months.
Well, this is it. I mean, I couldn't agree more with that. But I mean, if Rodgers is going to do things in spite of, maybe that's why the board, not because I'm condoning their attitude, I'm 100%, of the opinion they've undertooled the manager again this year when we're in a Champions League group, for example. But it almost feels like they make one big investment, so they don't need to make others. And their major investment this summer was going to be a manager who will be able to pull it out the bag, as opposed to tooling said manager up with players of the elite nature that the manager actually fucking is. That's ridiculous, but I think that's the way they are. Left back today, when you get hooked after 70 minutes for Bernabeu, you know you've had a shocker. And that's the reality. I thought
today's performance, Bhoycie, will get us 0 points in that group.
I agree with that. Today's performance, though, isn't by a team I expect to be anything like the first choice sort of 11 we'd be playing in the Champions League. I don't think that's going to be part of said plan either, if I'm honest. So we need to look at it from that point of view as well. What are you drinking?
Monster.
Vodkas now. I know you were drinking beer. Is it Monster you have with your vodka? Is it?
That is the mixer of choice. That is the go-to mixer. I'll be honest with you. I wasn't going to have any today because I've got an early start in the morning. But when you've won away at Ibrox, it's very, very hard to plan an afternoon without having a couple of celebratory ones.
I've just got a bag of cans, mate. Brendan Rodgers and a bag of cans.
You're talking about the Champions League group. I don't know the exact dates, but our first Champions League game comes quite quickly after we restart back again. The team isn't going to look a lot different to that today.
It might not look a hell of a lot different, but from today, what they can all take from it is a hell of a lot of confidence and be better for the next occasion as well. I think it's the transfer window, though, is compelling in terms of a Champions League campaign. Absolutely not. Far from it. Far from it. What I think, though, today we seen was the qualities of a good manager in charge who isn't going to panic in these situations, will play what's in front of him, won't panic and push the knee-jerk reaction sort of button and go, right, let's fling into the debutantes, as I thought we might have. That's not what we've done. We've decided to go with exactly who he's worked with for longer, and who he is now not hoping, but will have the knowledge of. They're beginning to get it. They're beginning to understand what I'm trying to do. See what happens in the second half, Terry, before we go into wider scope of all this. In the second half, Rangers played more like we expected them to kick off with. And that's because it took 45 minutes for Beale to identify Callum McGregor's dictating the show. We're setting off and it's not working. They're actually far better on the ball than I ever thought they were, just because he's an arrogant prick that way, right? And what we've decided to do is, in the second half, get in the trenches, mate. Start defending properly. That's what we did. And I think we actually held them off. You look at the clear-cut chances in that second half, Terry. There were one team that created the most of them, and it was us. I look at the shot on the right foot by Home, brilliant save by Butland. Tidy save by Butland. A Bada shot from wide right, which I thought was a cross. Then you see the behind the goal replay. Absolute fingertip save by Butland. That's going in the side net in no two ways. Brilliant save. And that denies us. And there was another opportunity as well. Oh, with the wasteful sort of slip through ball that he was trying to play.
He was unlucky. He was unlucky.
Oh, no, it was lazy, in my opinion. I thought it was lazy. It was a half-assed effort.
Yeah. He was on. You could see what he was trying to do, and he just hasn't got the right contact on it, to be honest.
Or skills or quality, I don't know. But what I do think was very interestingly is in that second half we showed a different side to us. Joe Hart has came in for criticism. Joe Hart, Terry, deserves a hell of a lot of fucking praise for his performance today. No,
there was a couple of moments, this last 20 minutes, where he made a couple of saves. Yeah, absolutely. But I mean,
he's never going to look good on the ball, right? He's always going to give you a heart attack on that. But we all know that. Brendan knows that. That's the goalkeeper in situ. Let's get back to, is he going to keep the ball out the net? My biggest worry about him is I don't think he does that enough. Then I watched him today. I felt he was more commanding. I think even with the one that they're going to slag their player for, I think it's Lammers. Remember, he kind of takes it round Joe Hart. I think Joe Hart gets a nick on it. Then there's the other one.
I'm expecting him to go down there. I'm expecting him to go down.
Yeah, but if he's not been, I know, but you're not going to get away with it in the VAR era, mate. If there's no contact.
No, but if he dangles his leg in there and makes contact and goes down, that he's going to get it.
Maybe.
I was glad he didn't.
What else could he have done though? There, I thought Hart did well. And there was another.
Listen, if you keep a clean sheet, the goalkeeper's done well.
Yeah, I thought there was another one where he came out. He kind of did the old school sort of Starman that he used to do when he was in his pomp. Saves it off the chest. I thought that was decent. Just, I think as well, his influence on the two centre halves playing that are far from first choice, Lagerbielka and Scales. I think he'd have been doing a lot of talking behind them as well. A lot of trying to organisation, I think, at the back for Joe Hart today. I think he comes away with a hell of a lot of respect and a lot of praise from my point of view anyway. And that's been a position I've identified for way longer than this summer that I thought we would be able to have improved on. But notwithstanding that, today's the day to give him the credit that he deserves because he had a fantastic game.
Absolutely. I'm more than happy to agree with that.
420 somewhere, 4 months member. Nice one, mate. We appreciate all that. Okay, Terry, there was a very interesting moment in the match. Second half. Triple subs on both sides. You ever seen that before? In a Glasgow derby? Both sides making a triple substitution at the same time?
I think it looked as if Rangers had made theirs and then nothing was going to happen. And then suddenly it was one Celtic sub and then 2 more appeared at the same time. So yeah, 6 players coming on at once. I'm sure it's happened before, but you've noticed it today.
Unusual. It felt unusual. And I thought, I wonder.
It was long overdue. It was long overdue for us because, what I like doing is trying to predict who I think the subs are going to be. But it was very, very obvious that Abada and Turnbull were going to go off. Very obvious indeed. Johnston's obviously picked up a knock, which I hope isn't too serious because I think we need him in there, especially in terms of Champions League games. I hope it's not a reoccurrence. I hope he's just picked up a knock and he wasn't able to continue for today. But whenever we come back again, we're sorted. But Davy Turnbull, I thought early in the game, even though McGregor was on song and he was dictating things, I thought in the very, very early exchanges, O'Reilly and Turnbull both were struggling to get involved. O'Reilly then found a way to get himself involved, but at no stage of the game today did I think Turnbull was able to get on the ball enough and be any kind of influence at all. I thought Abada was quiet as well, and Abada was up against a right-footed player filling in at left back, and I thought that was possibly an area that we could have targeted better, given that the awkwardness of, I think Sterling was his name, never heard of the guy, never seen him play before. He was playing left back instead of Barisic. He was always, he was very right-footed playing left back.
Yes, I was about to say that.
I just felt if you're a winger on your game and you're up against a fullback who's on his wrong side, and he wants to go that one way, I think you should find a way to be a better influence on the game than what Abada was, to be honest. So I thought Abada and Turnbull coming off were obvious ones. I thought Yang and Home coming on were the obvious replacements, given that we didn't have any other midfielders. Iwata wasn't on the bench. Don't know if he's hurt. Don't know if he's just out of favour. Don't know what's going on with Iwata, to be honest. Has he just not settled? Expectation levels based on the previous Japanese players that have come in, and the fact that, I know you guys touched on it this morning, he was the J-League Player of the Year. Something's not right with Iwata. Something just isn't happening that should be happening. There's a player in there that we haven't seen yet. And I kind of think, as last season was playing out, it was, he's settling in, he's getting accustomed, he's this, he's that. He hasn't really done anything for Celtic yet. And I'm beginning to wonder, is he the next version of Ideguchi, where he'll just fizzle out? There's just something about Iwata that hasn't happened, because I felt in the little snippets we've seen of him at stages last season, in his proper position, which is centre midfield, he looked okay. But there's a reason that Ange wasn't picking him. There's now a reason that Brendan's not picking him. So I know it's had no influence on today's game, but I thought we would have seen more from this guy by now, and I'm just starting to think, are we not going to see anything? I mean, if he's not hurt, if he's not got an injury, and Kwan is on the bench ahead of him, his Celtic days are numbered.
Well, exactly. I wonder about that as well, and I think it's great to always say, J-League Player of the Year, but in a Celtic shirt, I've not really seen much from him to make me pining for him to be involved either, to be honest. And I trust the manager's judgment on that massively. Big shout out to Alex967. He's saying this win was for his brother Jazz. Sadly passed away last week. He is sure he had some presence in the VAR van. I love that. Hail Jazz, you will rest in peace now. Thoughts are with you, Alex, mate, and the family. Yeah, interesting with the subs. I've got to be honest, I thought it was the right call to take Taylor off for Bernabei, albeit I don't,
that's a big call, by the way. That's still a big call to bring Bernabei
off. I agree, but I think that's a damning indictment on how badly Taylor was playing.
Let's take it
This
back.
is not a bandwagon jump, though. Very quickly, this is not a bandwagon jumping thing.
No, of course not.
Because it's been highlighted by Liam Greenlaw on several occasions on the bus, and now we're all. But for whatever reason, I didn't feel as concerned about Taylor anywhere near it last year at all as to what I am now. I felt today at times he just wanted to give the ball away. He wanted to put it out of the park. His decision making was awful. I don't know what the reasons are completely for that, other than a lack of not a lack of ability, but just not being at the level required. But yeah, when you're getting taken off for Bernabei, it's always a wee bit of a concern, because I don't think that's a guy that the manager's going to be hanging his hat on. Notwithstanding that, Bernabei came on and did okay. It'll be interesting to see how that one plays out. I wonder if, when we look at the options at centre back, I think that's a really strong area now, Terry, and I think you could end up with three at the back at some point. If that were the case, I'd be more comfortable with Maida playing as a left wing back. That almost doing exactly what O'Neill did with the Gap, and converting a guy who's played forward, plays a winger, into that wing back, because he's got the energy levels to do it. He's got the work rate. He's got a lot of tenacity in the tackle, and then going forward, his end product is unpredictable, as what you would expect from a defender. Anyway, I don't know. I just think that's a position that Rangers probably were targeting, and we got away with. Other than that, I think when you look at the other side, you see the difference when Alistair Johnston's in the team. I thought he was fantastic today, if I'm honest. I thought Johnston was very, very good, albeit he had to come off for Ralston, but we know it's early days in his recuperation from injury. But I like what Johnston brings to the table. I think he's got a wee bit of dig, but he's also got a lot of quality on the ball as well.
I think what Johnston did today was he learned, he took the information from the game, because I think he was caught out early with Sterling cut in from the left-hand side and went past Johnson and got a shot away or created a chance. But I think what Johnson then he learned from that this guy's all right footed. He's going to try and come inside anytime. The other thing was as well, I thought I watched a bit of their game against PSV during the week. Last 30 minutes I watched. Whenever it was obvious they were going out, I watched it just for a bit of enjoyment. But Matondo, I felt, was going to be their main threat today, just purely because of his pace. And Matondo seemed to be up against Johnson. And maybe in the first 15, 20 minutes, he got a little bit of joy. But I think what Johnston did then was he reacted and he adjusted his approach to the game to combat the pace of Matondo, and also if he was faced with the fullback, knowing that fullback was always going to turn onto his right foot. I didn't feel that we had that same adjustment on the other side. I don't want to be too hard on Greg Taylor, because I'll be honest with you, there was a Celtic Rangers game last year where Taylor was injured in the build-up to it, and I remember sitting on this pod talking about how we hoped Taylor was fit for that game because he was such an important player and he was in good form. He's in probably his worst run of form since he's joined Celtic. Take you back to the window, Bhoycie. The manager talked about obvious areas that needed improvement. I believe the two most obvious areas that needed improvement in this team were goalkeeper and left back. We signed 9 footballers during that window. We still ended up with no new goalkeeper and no new left back.
Yeah,
What's
I've
your
got
thoughts?
a theory on
What's
that.
your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a great question. I've got a theory on it. I really feel that both those positions, there's a reason why we didn't strengthen it, and it's because the board wouldn't allow it. Now, I'll tell you what, not because they wouldn't allow you to bring in either of those positions per se, but because there's 3 first-team goalkeepers already, one has to go before you can bring one in. 2 first-choice left-backs, well, you'll need to get rid of one before you can bring one in. And that was going to lead to it being an impossible task. I'm not condoning that attitude whatsoever. Do not get me wrong. I am not saying that is right. What I'm saying is that is the what's the fucking word I was going to say there? Proviso, whatever it is. I think that's been the template anyway that the board have put out there. If we've got the numbers that you require in a squad, in the first team squad for a position, you'll need to let one go before you get another one in there. Unless it's wingers, you can have 17 of them. But I think when it comes to the left back, there's 2 first team left backs. You'll need to get rid of one if you want to bring in another. There's 3 first team goalkeepers. You need to get rid of one of them before you bring in another. Ironically, it was the board that signed up Scott Bain on his new deal, not Ange. And therefore, that shows more incompetency at their level. But that's the reasoning I think behind it. But where it does lead me to really being really confused in that regard is the striker situation. That was a position I'd identified. And you're right, we brought in 9 players. Not a striker, so we're going with 2. One's injured, you're down to 1. O came on today. He's a project player, mate. He's raw around the edges. In fact, I think he's playing the game he's seeing the game differently for everyone else.
I hate that word, Bhoycie. I hate these words that get used. Project players and marquee signings. See those 2 words? I absolutely hate those. All I want is good footballers coming into Celtic. It just seems to be anybody that's under 23 automatically a project. Anybody you've ever heard of.
But I'm basing on what I've watched from him. There's no way that's a guy they think you could we'll hang a hat on. We'll hang a hat on. That can't be the attitude.
Anybody comes from the EPL as a marquee player. Anybody who's under 23 is a project player.
I get what you're saying. But watching all those so far, we've got a body of evidence when you watch him. Is that a guy you think Brendan will be going, if Kyogo's injured, I'm delighted I've got O playing up front? I doubt that, mate. Yeah. Therefore, that takes me to a space where I think that makes him, by definition, someone we're going to work with as a project.
Listen to me, right? We talked about this last season. So O was injured. O's been injured. And he suddenly appears on the bench today. Folk were a little bit surprised by that. Do you remember last year? I think it might have been the only game O started. Who was sitting in the crowd? Klinsmann,
yep. Again.
O appears from nowhere onto the Celtic bench today and then comes on. Who's sitting in the crowd? Do you remember we talked about it? Do you remember we were sitting going, it's Jurgen Klinsmann dictating.
He was at Rugby Park.
Ange Postecoglou never dropped Kyogo. It was Kyogo. Klinsmann appears. O starts, Kyogo on the bench. Klinsmann's game today. O hasn't been heard of in weeks. Suddenly appears on the bench. Crazy.
Loopy comes in. Loopy's a regular viewer. They say he's not played for a month, for fuck's sake. Did you expect him to hit the ground running today? No, just don't play him. If that's the case, there's loads of other games you could play him in. I would have happily just carried on with Kyogo, Loopy. I didn't feel O's contribution was brilliant. It's just the way it is. With regards to the rest of the options that we've got, I think what we've seen from the subs that came on today, how many injuries we've got as well, Terry. This squad is stronger than what we're probably giving it credit for as well, particularly the back. I mean, Cameron Carter-Vickers, and I've liked what I've seen of Rocky as well. I think that's now been supplemented by Nat Phillips, by Lagerbielke, who'll have better days than today. See, at the end of the day, Lagerbielke will come away going, we won. I kept a clean sheet. The mistakes don't feel as bad now. He's not been punished. His confidence will still have grown from the inclusion today. Liam Scales, he'll be high as a kite today. I love that. That position, I think, is really, really strong, which is ironic because it would have been one of the last departments, Terry. I'd have thought when Brendan got the job, I'd have felt centre-backs. That'll be well covered going forward with a lot of quality in there.
I wouldn't rule out Bhoycie Scales getting a run at left back. Even some of these other guys start to come back again. I don't think I know Scales wasn't great last weekend, but I thought he more than made up for that today. And I genuinely was delighted to see Sky Sports give him the man of the match. I thought he was the man of the match. I really did. I think Scales, I've said this before, I think Scales is a better bet than Bernabei. If Taylor continues to be out of form, Scales is an option on the left-hand side of the defence. I'm going to be interested.
Building that trust as well, isn't it? See if you can trust the man. And I think Brendan today will now have learnt a lot about.
He's done himself no harm.
I trust you now. So you're right. I think his left back, that is definitely a potential option.
Well, listen, he wasn't perfect today. He wasn't perfect, but we got a better performance from him than a lot of our support would have felt he was capable of. He took the lead today. Seeing that makeshift defence with a young lad beside him that's come in with a $3 million price tag, I thought Scales showed leadership qualities. He stood up there and he took control of that defence today. Between him and Joe Hart, Alistair Johnson, Scales done more than what we would have expected of Scales. I'd be interested to see if Nat Phillips comes in, Bhoycie, and I know he doesn't have. He's a really strange one. He's a really strange one because he's 26, I think, and he's got something like 50 first-team appearances. It's a really strange one. If I'm looking at that without looking at the detail, he's Liverpool's version of Stephen Welsh, where he loves the club, he's been around, he's filled in when they needed him, he's done a good job. If he comes in and he is of a higher level than what we've already got, or Lagerbielke or Nawrowski or whatever, that then begs the question of why were we not looking at that kind of player at the start of the window rather than just as a knee-jerk when we were in difficulty? I was expecting us to go out this summer, and I know you were as well, because when we talked in the early games at the start of the season, you were of the opinion, and I understand, I totally get this, you were feeling we were in the market for upgrades, players that once they come in, they're going straight into that first team and they are going to make us better.
Yep.
And that did not happen.
That's true.
It did not happen. If we went through a list, you and I, last weekend, of all the players we were linked with during the summer, they all moved. Every single one of those, they all moved. Fabian Reeder went to Rennes. The guy at Arsenal, what was his name? Centre-back, Holding. He went to Crystal Palace. Dyer. I think Dyer moved. Tierney obviously moved. The two kids from Man City moved on deadline day.
Yes.
All of those players that we were linked with.
Livakovic.
Podence. They all moved.
Livakovic, the goalie.
We were sitting here. Well, was he?
Celtic were interested in him.
Aye, I know Big Connor just can't let that one go. And I think you have to appreciate as
Well,
well.
he was on the list regardless of the
I
Connor
know,
can let me go. You just
I know.
told me he was
But
on the list. He's on the list.
As Celtic fans, we think, right, if we can afford that player, why are we not getting him? That player might not want to join Celtic. Do you know what I mean? If you're not a Celtic fan and you're some kid from another part of Europe or across the world, Celtic isn't going to have the same attraction as it is for us guys who support them. And I think you automatically think if there's a player available and it's in our price bracket or we'll push the boundaries, that player will automatically want to sign for us. That's not the case. And I know the guys were talking during the week, oh, why were we not in for him? And why do we not ask the question? We might well have asked the question, but not everybody's going to want to sign for Celtic. Not everybody's going to want to come to Scotland and freeze their balls off for 10 months of the year. You know, we'll never know what players.
I'm not subscribing to the weather argument.
We'll never know what players Celtic asked the question
for
of or
Manchester
didn't ask the
United
question
all the
of.
time. It rains there more in Manchester than it does fucking here.
Here's one though, boys. Here's one.
Shite.
Listen, let's go back to the left back, right? For some reason, I think Celtic felt they were in the races to get Tierney back, and we didn't have a plan B. And in the last 24 hours of the window, we possibly had agents throwing players at us, and the managers felt, nah, there's not enough there for me. I don't know that we're getting anybody better than what we've got. The bit I don't understand is why we felt we were in the race for Tierney, but it didn't happen. Because if you remember Rodgers, he was asked about Podence and Ryan Fraser, and he stopped the question before it got to the end. He just said, no, nothing. He was asked about Tierney, and he talked around it, which led us to believe there's a chance. Now, if we were in the discussion for Tierney, we would have known what the finances were. We also would have known what the players' intentions were. How has that not happened if we felt it was going to happen? And if we were nowhere near it, why do we not have another option ready to go?
Yeah, I hear you, man. Like, I think let's look at it the other way. Just say we'd lost today. I know we didn't, by the way. It's a hypothetical conversation.
We could very easily, boys. There was one moment of quality in that game that he doesn't score that, and they get one of their half chances.
Right. Let me explain what my point is.
Very different post-match pish.
Yes, and this is what I'm trying to say to you, Terry. So if we have a wee look at that vodka's kicking in, ladies and gentlemen, yeah, don't mix Monster with vodka. Or drink it through a straw at 100 miles an hour. But yeah,
I think trying to keep my teeth nice and white.
I'm only kidding on that. I'm only kidding. Looking great. Looking great. When did you get them done? Same time as Brendan. Basically, I think though, if had we got a negative result today, I think obviously the microscope does then start coming out for the transfer window, and you start going, well, hold on now, who's to blame here? And I think, like I was saying in the Sunday Blether, when you look at that lineup today, no matter what, Brendan's complicit in what's happened in the transfer window because he has been involved for such a long period of time since he's came in. Not like he's came in towards the end of it or the back end of the window. He's had plenty of time to make his mind up as to what he wanted to do and get his message across. That's the honest truth. So you're now led to a place where you go, is he happy with what he's got? And we're the ones that are, shite in the bed for want of a better term. Or is it a case of we are looking at Brendan getting results in spite of the board?
Exactly. That's what I said at the start of the show. I think today's result is in spite of the last 3 months, because I'm so disappointed in the way things have gone over the summer for Celtic. And yes, I know the manager change has probably thrown things into complete disarray, but I know I keep saying the same things. I expected this summer to be about 3 upgrades coming in to improve a treble-winning team. The club set the objectives for the season whenever the manager sat and told us about the plans to make a dent in Europe. we didn't set those expectations. It wasn't us saying we want this, we want that. The club came out through
his words.
Through the manager, the club came out and set the expectations.
His appointment takes you to that way of thinking as well, Terry. His appointment just alone, record wages for a manager and stuff. It just takes you to a place where you go, they mean business now, doesn't it?
I don't feel whatever Michael Nicholson and whoever else went out to Majorca to meet Brendan, whatever PowerPoint presentation they showed him to convince him to come back, I don't believe that has played out. It can't have. It can't have. We're talking about going into the Champions League and making a dent in Europe. The only dent we're going to make at the minute, despite today's result, which was based on one moment of quality, the only dent we're going to make is the dent on the door as we stagger out through it. Because a lot of Celtic fans have been celebrating the draw that we got the other day. And I'm kind of torn between I'm torn in terms of that draw we got the other day, because I think it gives us a better opportunity than we've had in a long time to get through in first or second place. But I also think it gives us less of a chance to stay in Europe in third place beyond the end of the year. Because the other groups, most of the other groups, there was a team in there that I felt we would be favourite to come out on top of. So, for example, the last two groups that were left was the one that we're in and Group H, which was Barcelona, Porto, and Shakhtar. If we had landed in that group with Barcelona, Porto, and Shakhtar, I think we would have been favourites to come third ahead of Shakhtar. The one we're in gives us a better chance of coming first or second, but I think it also gives us less chance of coming third because it's such a strong group without one outstanding team. Also, if you forget about the names that are actually in there, the team that came second in Italy, the team that won the Dutch league, the team that's consistently been the top three in Spain, if those names were slightly different, if that was Atletico, AC Milan, Inter Milan, and Ajax, you'd be going, fuck, that's one of the hardest draws we've ever had. So I don't think we should be fooled by Feyenoord. They won the Dutch league. They won the Dutch league that Ajax, PSV were in.
Bring them on.
Lazio finished second. Lazio easily won last night away to Napoli, who were the champions of that league. I think it's a tough group. Realistically, we're fourth favourites in that group. And I think in a summer where we were expecting the manager to be tooled sufficiently to go into that competition and compete, I think he's going in with a water pistol. I think he's going in with a water pistol. I really do. I really do. We've signed 9 players, Bhoycie, and as we sit here right now, we've gone into our biggest game of the season. Our biggest game of the season. None of those 9 players are any better than what we had last year, and only one of them started today. And I would argue that he only started because there were other players that weren't available.
Yeah, i.e. one of the other signings, though, to be fair, Terry, just to knock that narrative on the head, it would have been Rocky that would have started instead of Scales. It would have been 2 centre-backs, and if CCV was fit...
2 centre-backs, I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
And Rocky, so there would have been a...
However, can you say at this point in time that any of those would have been upgrades on what we had last year, which is the much maligned, and I'm his biggest critic, Starfelt? Are any of those guys better than him? I know it's unfair to judge them, but you can only judge them on what you've seen. And
fucking hell, Terry, man. This is the last time we beat Rangers and you come on, honest to fuck, man. What's going on? You're focused on the Champions League.
You've got to get real, boys. You
2 weeks time. It's not about being real all the time,
you can't let one moment of quality mask your view.
You're here to enjoy yourself as well, though, mate, as a fan.
Oh, I'm enjoying myself. Don't worry about that. I'm enjoying myself.
I think the Champions League's still, 2 weeks away? Think
boys, you see this thing that you can just bring players in and magically everything works together. Our business should have been done at the start of the window. I know you were waiting on these higher level players that we had to wait for our turn. And let me have a cough here quickly. I think Ange just
You're
gave
getting
me his cough.
pelters in the comments, mate, for your negativity.
Ange doesn't have a cough anymore. He's got this intake of breath. But anyway, enough about him. Nah, Bhoycie, none of the players we've brought in required us to wait till the end of the window for. I mean, let's face it. If we were waiting
know all
on...
this though, Terry. We know this. Today's the P.M.P about beating Rangers. Let's talk about them before we go.
Right, okay.
You're bringing me down, mate. You're bringing me down. I'm in a good mood. Let's talk about the mood music over there, mate. The knives will be sharpening for that boy. Now, that's 2 hammer blow defeats in 2 different styles today. A 5-1 gubbin. No, sorry, not home in a row, but they were away for home midweek. 5-1 gubbin. And then 1-0 by your rivals, who are half a team, I think Brendan described it as, was missing. And we still got the result. I think the turn on him now will be monumental. We've spoken in the past on here that his talk will end up talking him into bother, right? We'll end up talking about his own fans. We're highlighting it as because we like to dig him out, right? Because that's what you do, a rival manager. But I think the amount of shite he's talked, see, once results don't match up to it, and today's another example of a big game, a must-win game, if you like, for him, where he's failed. He fails when it matters. End of. And what they're now going to start doing, they'll start going to go in, I'm sick of listening to that guy's pish. I'm sick of listening. And because he talks so much, I wonder if the knives are sharpening for that manager. Here's my takeaway from it. At half-time, Brendan Rodgers, in a private moment, and a wee naughty moment, may well have thought, do you know what? Murty put up more of a fight of it than this prick.
Aye. I'm sorry, Bhoycie, if I'm coming across negative, right? I'm just trying to be real. I mean, the way I see it, one moment of quality masked a lot of poor stuff. But that's it. In terms of today's game,
but you're looking at the bigger picture, but really, we should be looking at the small one
I'm
today.
just looking ahead the post-match pish in 3 or 4 weeks' time when we get a title in Europe and we're sitting going, how have we ended up in this space? But anyway, I don't know. I'm sure I'm not alone. See, there was about 40 seconds at the end where the Celtic players had made their way off and the Rangers players were very, very reluctantly going round to applaud the fans, and the fans were not applauding back. I don't know about anybody, but for me, that was the most enjoyable part of today. See sitting watching boys fucking making wanker signs at the players and booing them, and women standing crying and all. I absolutely love that. I love sharing in that misery of that support. And see, to be honest, they've brought it on themselves, because it was very, very obvious to anybody with any sort of IQ that Mickey Beale was an absolute shite talker from the start. But Rangers fans being Rangers fans, they've just absolutely sucked that in. And then I think reality has hit today, because in the last week, they've gone from being on the cusp of being in the Champions League and having a chance to go to the top of the SPL. They're now out of the Champions League, having their arse handed to them on a plate by a team that they beat last year. And they've now been beaten today by probably the worst Celtic team that will be fielded against them in the next 10, 20, 30 years. And I think the reality just hit home at full time. And I mean, the guys in the studio were talking Sutton, Boyd, who else was there? I felt a wee bit sorry for James McFadden today. He was sitting between Chris Sutton and Neil Lennon, and he was probably the only one that was going to give a proper sort of analysis on the game, because them 2 guys were never going to back down. But already the knives are being sharpened for Mickey Beale, and Mickey Beale's under pressure, and Chris Sutton's asking the question to Chris Boyd, how long does he get? And Chris Boyd's responding, he's under pressure from day one of the season. And I don't know, if they come out after the break, Bhoycie, and don't get 3 points in their first game, are they calling for Mickey Beale to be out? And
I think you need to remember it's 10 months. And in 10 months of big games, this guy is not provided the results required. He's had chances to do so. He has had opportunities. And in the big games, he ain't delivered. I'll give you a great example of it. We picked up on it after the 3-0 defeat at Ibrox, right? Do you remember him posturing with the pout when the camera went on him, so he was aware of the camera. See, today, he was not aware the camera was on him, and he stood, and the cameraman must have known what was going on, because he lingers on it for a while, and he's looking vacant, doing all this, licking his lips, like just completely like looking lost. And I thought, there's a guy when he's under the cosh who's not got the answers, and yet when he's on it, he's too aware he's getting a good result, just too aware of it. That'll irritate your own fans as like, well, whilst we can scoff at it and laugh, that'll start irritating their own fans. This guy can talk the talk, he cannot walk the walk. Brendan hasn't done enough of the talking, mate. This is a guy we know can walk the walk. I want to hear him sound a wee bit more bullish at times, you know that? Because I'm like, you can back it up, big man. You've backed up, you've got the credit in the bank to do so. So today was maybe just that next wee sort of level, and the whole shift pattern changing again, where Celtic fans start going, do you know what? When you look at the odds against us, who fancied us to win today? Fucking nobody. He's pulled it out the bag, that manager. My faith is restoring. There was elements of the game. I'm not saying it was a pretty watch today by any means, but there was elements in our team play today that I thought, the message is getting across a wee bit clearer. And then you've got the opposite, which helps the shift change, and that is another big game. If they all thought they were going to get beat, that kind of tends to mean they all thought they were going to win. Then you look at the result, and now it's, how many is that we're racking up now, that he doesn't get the job done when it matters? I just feel the momentum shift's already there. It's 4 points clear after 4 games. It should be what should be 6? Should be 6 or 7. I just think that, if we hadn't drawn with St Johnstone, my maths is terrible after a few beer. But you know what I mean. It should be 6. Should be 6.
No, we get the result last week. We're 6 clear.
6 clear, aye. 7, Jesus Christ. But yeah, I just think the mood music has changed. And I felt there was a shift last week. I felt the momentum going into this game. The mood music was changing, stood by it, and I think we've been proven right. I wonder now if we will pull away clear. Remember the next derby, Terry, is at Paradise. 60,000 Celtic fans.
I'm trying to rein myself in here.
Be excited, mate.
No, I am. I genuinely think, this will be the turning point. And not because today was brilliant, but because of the significance of the result. International break, 2 weeks. They have 2 weeks to sit and stew over where they're at. We've had, by our standards, we've had a really poor start to the season, and we're 4 points clear of Rangers. If we click into gear, it's only going one way. And I did say last week, as emotional as we were, we do get fired up, and we're passionate about the club, and we want to see good football, and we want to see goals and victories and all that kind of thing. In a few months, this could all pale into insignificance, because we could be sitting 10, 12 points clear. And if I'm being honest with you, I think today, and I know we kind of had this debate within our own group chat. I felt today was a massive game, and we were talking about players coming in and being ready for this game. And again, I know that your thoughts were the transfer window does not revolve around that one match, and I totally get that argument as well. However, the Sky Sports commentary today made the point, the winner of the first Glasgow Derby in the last 11 years has won 9 championships. To me, that makes this a very significant game. The fact we were away from home, the fact we were depleted squad, threadbare, thrown in players that wouldn't normally play, and we've gone there and we've got the job done. To me, that makes today a massive, massive game in terms of the league championship. I fully expect Celtic to go on from now. I expect Celtic to go on from now and to get the job done, easily.
They will get the job done
easily. But I think today was a really important game. I really, really do. And I think we should have been better prepared for today's game. I think we were underprepared. But
does it not remind you of the Lenny season? The 2019 when we won 2-0 that day. I thought we were going to get second in that second half.
Is that the day Johnny Hayes scored?
Yes. And no one fancied us that day. All the mood music was very, very similar.
Beaton at centre back had a fucking great game.
El Hamed right back debut. Yeah, I tried. That's what it took me back to, man.
Sometimes in
That sounds
adversity,
fantastic. I predicted it today. I said it could be like
said
that.
last
I
week.
thought it'd be like that one.
Said last
But
week,
anyway,
sometimes good times come from adversity, and we
yes.
could not have been in any worse shape going into today. And I genuinely think if I watch this game back tomorrow or Tuesday, I'll be sitting going, why was I worried? There was nothing in that game to concern us. But I don't know. I'm always, when I'm watching the game, I'm just expecting the referee to give a bad decision, them to get a lucky break, something to go against us, kind of thing. And probably just, and I know we're very, very quick as Celtic fans to call out the refs and stuff. I thought the ref had a decent game today, and I thought in an environment with only one set of supporters, and they were crying. They were crying for absolutely everything.
Crying now.
Other than missing the foul on Lagerbielke the first time, which I was even more surprised. I was actually more surprised that Dallas invited him over to look at it, because I felt he could just let that one go. I felt the referee. Don't quote me on this. I felt the referee had a fucking pretty decent game on the basis that he got the decisions right. And that's probably us from a Celtic supporter prism of we expect those decisions to go against us because of whatever we feel. He got the decisions right. I felt he had a good game.
No, I think that's absolutely fair. Anyway, we'll wrap it up. That's been an hour and 12 minutes. Irish Pub Molly Malone's is calling my name as well, because it is going to be absolutely jam-packed.
Who's on tonight? Is there music on the night?
Oh, there'll be music on. It's 30 seconds away, mate. It's going to be rammed and stilling, man. It'll be absolutely rammed. So I am going to head there and cause some mischief, as you do. But yes, always remember, if your ex ever gives you a call, maybe sometimes it's right to take her back. See ya.